I even think as well, if we want to talk about Fnatic, that conversation tails perfectly into this, Dom, because I tell you who was obviously supposed to be a player like that was Humanoid. He was supposed to be the next guy who had exactly that status, where it doesn't even matter how he's played. If he just turns up, he wins the game for you. And I have to say, the more I talk to people from Fnatic, hear interviews, talk to experts, everyone, it seems like, is on the same page on this one, Dom, which is in this team, like, here's the flaw, and also sound counterintuitive to fans, but I actually think one of Humanoid's issues is that he's got teammates that are too good, and they're used to being the, like, agent. They're used to having agency in other teams they've been in. So, like, some of the players in his teams, like Upset was the man in most of the teams he played on. Hylissang, the whole thing about Hylissang is you don't chain him up, you just let him do what he does and you figure out after that. Razork used to, I think, in my opinion, and this is pure speculation because unfortunately I haven't talked to him about this, but if I look at the Misfits Razork was on with all those rookies, and then he did generally just play off solo lanes, because why the fuck wouldn't you with those players? Like, that's not the same team you're even playing with. So I actually think in the Humanoid thing, I'd love to hear like the real comms, not like the edited ones with all the funny shit. Like, I'd love to actually hear like how they set up for like a gank or how they set up for a team fight. Because sometimes, Dom, I kind of go between the two. I either feel like there's no comm, like when I look at some of those like Hylissang ints, some of those look like there's no comm there whatsoever. You just did it and it happened and then everyone has to deal with it. Or in team fights, I could also believe sometimes it's like everyone's talking, because like that is what, if people don't know, that like whole too many cooks in the kitchen phenomenon, that in League especially, that can be real in my opinion. Sometimes it is better to have like the one or two people who just have the idea and we follow generally, you know.
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I watch Humanoid play, this is going to sound pretty harsh, but I think that Humanoid just thinks that Razork is shit. Like, when I watch the way that he reacts...
I'll tell you that, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Maybe it's not that he thinks he's shit, but he definitely doesn't think he's good enough that he's going to blindly trust anything Razork says. You see so many just weird interactions between Razork and Humanoid. It feels like there's just a weird dynamic there. There's like some, like they need to have a heart to heart or something where they're like, all right, man, like we got to get on the same page. Like, what do you need to see out of me? What do I need to see out of you? Because when I see the way that like mid jungle is so fucking important. When you watch good teams, they at least are on the same page. Even if they int, you got to int together, but it feels like they're just doing their own thing. Like they're kind of just like, you know, like Humanoid's like, okay, I'll like back you up, but I'm not going to fucking really try to make your play work. Like I think that you're probably going to be inting a lot of the time when you go into fights. So it's weird to see the dynamic between them. Like it just doesn't feel like there's enough trust. And I feel like that's the weird thing for Humanoid is that, you know, I think he relies on his jungler pretty heavily. Like he wants to fuck his lane as hard as possible. Humanoid goes into the game, he wants to destroy. So he's gonna need you to be there at certain points. He needs you to come dive mid lane or give him a push out or like let him get a resort. He wants to use his pressure and do something. Like you just gotta really just be Humanoid's dog. And I feel like Razork is kind of a bad dog right now, you know? Like there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that dog, you know, like he's got like mange or something.
Foam at the edge of his mouth might be rabies.
Yeah,
I'd stay
like
away.
heartworms or something. There's it's like maybe he's got rabies. Like there's something fucked up with that dog, and Humanoid knows it, so he's trying not to get too close to it.
The other thing I'll say as well about Humanoid is this. This is why, in some ways, he does actually remind me of his teammate Hylissang, which is, in a way, right, I know this sounds fucked up because when they're at their worst, this sounds so egregious to say, but I actually, in a way, I know it sounds mad, I sort of like that they int so badly, because what I mean is this. Every other type of player in the world eventually would go, I'm just fucking losing these games. I'm just going to do nothing if I don't know what to do. They always go for it no matter what. Like, dude, even when he's playing his absolute worst game, Humanoid does the old classic, like he doesn't actually do it now, but a few years ago, Caps used to be notorious for trying to save Flash in like the most like fucking like ridiculous scenarios where it's like, bro, just use it. But he would be, because he knew like in theory, if I just like pick so perfect, walk out the way and save this Flash, I have an edge, don't I? I can use it later in a fight or get a kill. Like, but he would do it too much. It was like, essentially it would be the equivalent of starting every mid lane build and always going like Dark Seal. Like, you can't do that in every matchup. Like, you're just going to blow the game. But these guys play like that. Like, Humanoid still does that now, dude. Even when he's having a terrible game, he just does the most like fucking, he will just gamble every flash hold he can do. Like, because he wants to, like you're saying, he still wants to shit on everyone. He still, like, he actually plays like he doesn't know that he's in bad form. He plays like he thinks he's the best every game, which in a fucked up way, I sort of admire, because if people don't know, people who have that mindset, they can ruin the game for you. But I tell you what, anytime they get good, they are amazing if they have that mindset. That is because that's the mindset where if you actually are the best, you don't just beat the guy. You're like fucking stood on his neck and he can't even do anything. You just dominate the guy, you know.
Yeah, I think the problem with Humanoid is that he's bought too much into his solo queue persona. So for people that don't know, his username in solo queue is Jonah Falcon. And if you don't know who Jonah Falcon is, he is the Guinness world record holder for having the biggest penis of all time. That's who that guy. So I feel
that's his name on solo queue.
Yeah, that's his name.
Well, that's a big dick player right there. Yeah, exactly. Nailed it.
Jonah Falcon.
That sounds about right.
Jonah Falcon. That's this guy. Maybe it's pronounced Falcon or something. It's spelled Falcon. So Humanoid just acts like he has the biggest dick in the world all the time, but it's like, come on, dude. Sometimes you have to just you have to have a little bit of class. You can't just whip it out and that just end every situation. Like you got to just, relax a little bit. Like you can flash. Doesn't mean that you're less of a man if you flash away from a gank. Like we all get ganked. That's part of being a mid laner. Like you get ganked. All right, flash away. Like, don't lose your team the game over holding this one summoner. Like you don't need it that fucking bad, especially on the champions you're playing.
So I'll tell you another thing about this squad that I find a bit weird is we can't do it. Right, look, but let's be real fans. Even though always, if you look on Liquipedia or Leaguepedia type thing and you look at the roster, your brain's always going to go, fuck, that is a good roster though. Fucking look how good those players are. Even though, we can't really do that for 2 whole splits. So I have to say, when you were saying earlier about how important mid-jungle is, Dom, if you just look at the top 4 teams, Fnatic is the worst mid-jungle of those 4. Look at them, there's Malrang Larson, there's fucking Niski Elyoya, and there's Markoon and Nuke. Those are way better fucking combos than this one.
Isn't that sad, though?
Isn't that
sad that Nuke Markoon are just better than Razork?
And by the way, I don't even think that's that. There wouldn't be that much debate. I think most people would take that. I think most players would probably even agree. And it's just a better synergy in it. Because that's the problem they have in this team, mates. It's not even like they never have good games individually. Like a few weeks ago, Razork had a mad pop-off game. Humanoid has had games that were good. It's just they almost have anti-synergy, dude. As you're saying earlier, it is like they don't trust each other. Because the difference between when you believe in your jungler and when you think your jungler might fuck you is so enormous in this game. That's one of the reasons, in my opinion, why even Selfmade and people like that have trouble. They might be known as mega players, but if people feel I don't know if I can trust you to know what to do or to come back in the game, they'll play differently around you, and everyone sort of limits their own game a bit. I do get that vibe in this team.
Yeah, you need to have a little bit of that bromance between jungle and mid, where it's even if it's looking bad, you just got to sometimes pull the trigger and try to salvage the situation. You see that in some teams, you see that inherent trust. You see it with Caps and Jankos all the time. If Jankos is kind of ending a situation, Caps is going to try to save it, and that's where he has some of those hero outplays. And I think Humanoid is good enough to do that. But the problem is that some of the plays that Razor goes for are just unsalvageable, and Humanoid knows it. And it's because he does that at such a high percentage of the time. There's so many unsalvageable plays that it's Humanoid has way too much restraint around that, and then it goes the other way too, where you can tell that if Humanoid really believed in his teammates, he would be more disciplined with this flash, because he would know that he doesn't need to absolutely destroy his fucking opponent to carry the game. He can just be a good mid laner, and they should win. I don't know. I feel like this team is really hard. We've seen this so much with super teams. They remind me of LNG in LPL. The LNG team, for people that don't know, it's Doinb Tarzan team. LNG went to Worlds last year. They retained the same roster, but they just added Doinb, who was the MVP of the split in summer of 2021. And the team just fucking sucks. Realistically, the team is just bad. And yeah, everyone's given up on them. The reason why it's harder to give up on Fnatic is because, once again, no one looks actually that insane. So you think okay, even though you're playing obviously bad, you're 5-4. You're 5-4. You still are in control of your own destiny. You still have a playoff spot. You just need to get a little bit better and you can win a title. They don't have to become insane. They just have to get a little bit better and they can win a title. So
I'd even say, if you look at some of the games Wonders had this split, I think they've even potentially got more, they actually have even more win conditions potentially. Also the other one, which, let's be real, is I don't know what the patches that are coming up by the time playoffs comes are, but all they need to do, Dom, is just get into a meta in the playoffs where the bot lane can be dominant and this team can run the fucking table. Look at the players they have.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I will say, where they are right now is mad precarious.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.